Yes, this is the Film Raider podcast. Today we are talking about the Raiders' second preseason game against the Vikings, the first football game in Las Vegas since January. The Raiders got the win, but we said it last week, we don't care about wins and losses in the preseason. We don't even really care about statistics in the preseason. We are looking for the hidden details of preseason football. We're looking at the details that might be easy to miss if you're just watching the game on TV, watching for fun. Right, so let's get right into it. The first thing that stood out, the Raiders have done a really good job so far in preseason of getting a lot of reps for the offensive side of the football. The Raiders ran 70 plays today. The Vikings only ran 50 plays. So that's 20 extra reps that the Raiders offensive line, the Raiders depth players were able to get in preseason. I think it's pretty clear that Josh McDaniels values these reps, and these extra reps are probably going to be very important for our offensive line. Remember, this is a patchwork offensive line in a lot of ways, right? So it's important for these players to get as many reps as possible, as many live reps as possible in preseason. The Raiders are succeeding in getting these guys reps, right? So now on that note, why don't we start talking about the offensive line? A lot of things stood out about the offensive line today. For starters, I think there's some things to feel good about, but there are some new areas to be concerned. For example, a 7th round rookie, right tackle Munford, number 77, got the start over last year's first round pick, Alex Leatherwood. This is obviously concerning. I made it very clear last week that I have very low expectations for Munford. I saw some people on social media talking up Munford as though he played pretty well tonight. I did not necessarily think Munford looked good at all. Same thoughts that I had last week. Now, maybe I'm missing stuff. Obviously, I did not think Munford played well last week, and then this week he got the start, right? So I don't know if he's doing really well in practice. I don't know if the coaches are just trying to throw him in the fire and see what he has. But, watching Munford, I still stand by the fact that I don't think he is powerful enough, especially for his size. I don't think his feet are quick enough. And what I saw today in Munford's start kind of backs up all of my concerns. I didn't think he did a good job using his hands when he was blocking. A lot of times he actually ended up losing after engaging with the defensive lineman. Right, so they engage, and then the pass rusher oftentimes was able to get past him, get by him through better use of hands while engaged. So Munford has to do better with his feet. He's got to do better with his hands. I don't think he looks powerful enough for his size. I just want to see Munford do a better job of staying on his blocks. I definitely want to rewatch the game another time or two just to watch Munford and take more specific notes on Munford. But I was not impressed with him at right tackle. Shifting over to Alex Leatherwood, I don't think Leatherwood played bad when he came in, right? Leatherwood came in the second half. I think, as usual, he looked good in the running game. But there were a few times still where he got beat in pass protection. And if this guy is playing in the second half of a preseason game and is not dominating, then that has me very concerned for Leatherwood's future in this offense. Now, who knows? Many things could happen. Many things can change. But if Leatherwood is not able to come in the second half of a preseason game and dominate at right tackle, then we definitely have a valid reason to be concerned about the right tackle position. I just don't think Munford is going to be the answer, right? Sticking at tackle, but hopping over to the other side, 72, Illuminor played a lot of left tackle at the beginning of the game, right? Last week it was Brandon Parker who started at left tackle. Obviously, Colton Miller is resting. Let's keep him healthy. But Illuminor looked just as bad at left tackle as Parker did last week. Well, that might be hard. Maybe not quite as bad, but I didn't think Illuminor played well at all. He got beat pretty regularly at left tackle. I think he played a little better when he bumped over to guard. But again, obviously that is against players further down the depth chart at that point, right? So at left tackle, I do not have confidence in Illuminor in backing up Colton Miller, right? So right now, between 4 tackles, Leatherwood, Munford, Illuminor, and Colton Miller, I think Colton Miller is the only sure thing, the only thing we could feel confident in at tackle. The other three are huge question marks, and I'm really starting to get a little nervous about the tackle position. We could bump inside and look at guard. I think Lester Cotton played pretty well tonight. I like Lester Cotton as a run blocker. And I encourage everyone to check out our new YouTube channel. The channel is called The Film Raider. But on that channel, we took a look at Lester Cotton as well as Dylan Parham and just how they were used in terms of pulling. It seemed very clear today that the Raiders offense wanted to test out these right guards, these young right guards, in pulling across the line of scrimmage to the left in the power run game. I think Lester Cotton looked really good pulling across the line of scrimmage. I think he did a pretty good job staying on his blocks in space and being kind of a lead blocker in this power game. So Lester Cotton looked good as a run blocker. I think that Dylan Parham looked good as a run blocker as well. There are certain moments watching Parham where I get a little concerned. Is he strong enough? Is he strong enough to hold up against strong power rushes come the regular season? And I still think this is an area we need to hold on and see. There's a couple times where it looks like he's being overcome with strength or power. But despite these moments, he actually was able to kind of hold up an anchor last moment, even though it looked like he was kind of getting stood up. So a little impressive there for Parham. He was able to kind of recover a few times in pass protection. I think Parham did a good job as well when used as a pulling guard. So Parham and Cotton looked well. Andre James, I talked Andre James up in the first preseason game. I think we kind of came back down to earth a little bit in the second game. It just wasn't quite as clean of a performance for James. On the scramble for a touchdown by Stidham, I believe James got beat pretty bad in pass protection. Right, so keep an eye on James. I do think he'll end up being the starting center, but keep an eye on the competition at guard. I think Dylan Parham has played well, and I think Lester Cotton has played well also, specifically as a run blocker. I think he's got potential there. And if the game can slow down for him, he could probably improve as a pass protector as well. I do think it's worth noting that Dylan Parham did get beat in pass protection on a twist. This happened with Cotton last week. This is just something that happens with younger offensive linemen, and that is why it's so critical that our offensive linemen get as many reps as possible right now in the preseason. Let's take a look. Let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball. We're almost done. This is going to be a pretty brief episode, but a few things to point out. Let's start with the positives. How about Kyle Pecco, number 92? I think Pecco had a really, really good game at defensive tackle. DT is one of those positions that the Raiders, have to have some concern over just based on health. But I think Pecco did a really good job today showing power. He showed an ability to get off the ball, win leverage, use his hands to disengage with the offensive line. He had a couple of pressures, did a good job creating these pressures, again, through using his hands. That's what we want to see from these pass rushers, especially these young, unknown interior defensive tackles, right? Let's find the defensive tackles who can use their hands to disengage. Pecco showed that a couple times today in order to get into the backfield of the Minnesota Vikings. So I'm really high on Pecco after today's performance. I think 97 Billings played pretty well. Also, he had a couple flashy moments. But one thing to point out about Billings, I've already have heard a lot of fans are talking about 97, talking about Billings. He did have some good plays, but he also had a few plays against the run where he got walled off pretty badly by the offensive line. So Billings flashed as a pass rusher a few times, but he got walled off against the run a few times, which led to some successful runs. Young defensive tackles. Let's talk about Neil Farrell and Matthew Butler. These are defensive tackles that we talked about a lot last week. I liked what they did last week on tape. This week, not so much. At one point, 93 Farrell and 73 Matthew Butler were on the field, and the defensive line was getting absolutely whooped in the ground game. Both defensive tackles ended up leaving the field for an extended period after that. And I do think the run defense played a little bit better in the trenches when those two were off the field earlier on. So definitely some concern there. I think that Farrell, what we saw today is, that upper body strength, that upper body power is still lacking. I'm not seeing Neil Farrell use his hands to get off of blocks, and I didn't think he looked very explosive getting off the ball today. Just the second preseason game, we'll have to see with him still. But just a few errors from Farrell, a few times where it didn't look like his motor was necessarily running all the way. Saw him jogging around a few times, and I saw Farrell get pancaked pretty badly at one point also. And then Butler, Matthew Butler, the other rookie, I think he was pretty much a non-factor all game. He got pushed around in the ground attack. No push as a pass rusher. I did not see anything good from Matthew Butler today after a semi-impressive first preseason performance. And, at this point, there isn't a ton else that I have to say, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Just a few scattered thoughts. I think that 56 Jerry Green, he got absolutely owned against the run tonight. I did not like 56 at defensive end. He was a liability in the ground game. I think that obviously 96 Bauer, he had a couple nice pass rushes today. What I liked about him is he was able to flash some actual pass rush moves. He was able to use his hands to get off of blocks. We already talked about how important that is. We actually saw that from Bauer, I think two times really. He had a sack and he had a pressure. He showed the ability to use his hands to get off of blocks. Kuntz obviously had a flash play. Kuntz is an athletic pass rusher. I like him in this twist game. I mentioned that last week. That's how he got his sack this week. But if you look at the Kuntz sack, one thing that I want to point out is watch number 95, Kendall Vickers. Vickers does a great job on that play. Again, on the play where Kuntz got the sack. Vickers did a very good job eating up two blockers. You could really see Vickers' power there, and he eats up two different blockers, which helps free up the pass rush for Malcolm Kuntz. So on that note, we are going to end the podcast. Nice, quick, brief recap of some things that stood out. If you want to see some clips of some of these plays I mentioned, check out our YouTube channel. Again, the channel is called The Film Raider. We have some cut-ups there already. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me at filmraiderpodcast@gmail.com. And the last thing I want to leave you with, I actually want to leave you all with an open-ended question. This is something I was thinking about this week. I even texted a few buddies just to get their thoughts. I'm not even necessarily going to give my opinion. I just want people to think about this between now and our next episode. Think back through all the terrible years of being Raiders fans. Think of all those rough seasons. Think back to the Jason Campbell era and the Carson Palmer era. Now, my question for you all, and feel free to email me your response if you want, again at filmraiderpodcast@gmail.com. You can email me your response, or you could just talk about it with your friends. Think about it yourself. But I want to know, between those two quarterbacks, who was the better overall Raiders quarterback? Carson Palmer or Jason Campbell? I think it's an interesting question that doesn't have a very obvious or clear answer. So I look forward to seeing if I get any responses, see if anyone has any strong thoughts on this. But until next time, take care, everyone. This is the Film Raider Podcast, and we will talk to you next week.